What's up, guys? Our wrestling podcast back at you with another episode. This is Dave Vicious along with Jess, the Total Package, and Cuz, bringing you our perspective on the world of professional wrestling. No inside sources, no ties to the industries, just stories from the diehards, sharing opinions with you. Will someone just feed me today's topic?
Hit it, Cuz.
You already know.
Damn! It's the Legacy of Ron Simmons coming at you. This will be a good one. For audio fans, give us a listen on Apple, Spotify, SoundCloud, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, and Google Podcast. Or watch our videos on YouTube at our wrestling channel. On social media, give us a follow on Instagram or Twitter at O.W.P 2019 or Facebook at Our Wrestling Podcast. Jess, what made you come up with the idea of Ron Simmons this week? I do like it. It kind of came out of nowhere for me.
I truly don't know. Ron Simmons, he got in my head somehow, and then I was like, oh, we need to do a Legacy of Ron Simmons, and that was it.
It really is something like we love Ron Simmons. It's not even a question. It's just the way he's been able to prolong career, even when he wasn't working anymore. He brought that work to the back, and he can show up on any televised syndicate anywhere and just give him 30 seconds, and he will blow the roof off with what, Cuz?
You know,
Damn.
He was scrambling.
Not that one, but definitely the first one. I don't know what it is about damn, but it's soaked in our heads forever, and it's fantastic. But he does start out much sooner than that. Do you guys have anything you want to say before we start?
No, rocket into it. Rocket.
Let's do it. Well, let's get into the early years. Born in Perry, Georgia, Simmons was attending Warner Robins High School, where he played football as a tight end and linebacker. In 1976, he was named Lineman of the Year and First Team All-State by the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. I can tell you, seeing some pictures of Simmons, the dude was massive even then. He was considered one of Florida State's greatest recruiting victors when he signed out of high school. Simmons played 4 years from 1977 to 1980 as a defensive nose guard at FSU, under Coach Bobby Bowden, who Simmons described as a second father. That's sweet. Earning consensus All-America honors in 1979 and 1980. The Seminoles were 39-8 during Simmons' years at the school, finishing in the Associated Press top 20 3 times from 77 to 79 and 80, and earning back-to-back Orange Bowl trips after Simmons' junior and senior seasons.
He's a talented
there you go.
He's a talented man.
Yeah, super talented man. In 1979, Simmons finished 9th in the Heisman voting behind the winner, Charles White of USC. In 1988, Simmons' jersey number 50 was retired by Florida State University, the third time a number has been retired in school history. That's saying something. Ron Simmons was inducted into the Orange Bowl Hall of Fame for his accomplishments while playing at Florida State, and he was elected to the College Football Hall of Fame in 2008. He later had a brief career stint in the National Football League, selected in the 6th round of the 1981 NFL Draft. He played for the Cleveland Browns, there's your problem, in 1981 and 82, and the USFL Tampa Bay Bandits from 1983 to 85. And it was in Tampa where he was a teammate of a future professional wrestler that you might know of, Lex Luger. That's how you get into the business.
He had career? Even though he was young, he had like a full fucking life before he got into wrestling.
He was already set before wrestling.
I mean, he was super active in football, like in his high school years, college years, and a little after college. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I bet he has the type of house room that you would walk into and probably say,
"Damn!" Maybe. So let's get into those NWA years with Jim Crockett and WCW. Simmons joined Jim Crockett Promotions in 1986 as a lower card talent. And
a little note, too, right before that, he actually started in, I'm sure he wrestled in some other territories before, but he started in Bill Watts' UWF, the Bill Watts UWF of like 86, 87. And then when the merger happened, he pretty much just came aboard to Bill Watts' UWF. And then when Crockett bought UWF, that's how Simmons ended up with the Crockett NWA.
Wow, he was acquired.
He came on over.
Came on over in the merger. In October of 86, he was programmed in his first TV angle with Tiger Conway and Shaska Watley. Am I saying that?
Yeah, right? I love Shaska Watley. He was funny. Shaska
we gotta do a legacy on him next time.
Yes.
He, being Ron Simmons, not Shaska Watley, remained undefeated until being defeated by Ivan Koloff At the Omni in Atlanta, February of 1988, Simmons remained dominant in singles action against lower card competition for the remainder of 88.
Buckle now, waiting on the menace. You talked about a rocket, watch this. Comes off with a shoulder, down on the menace, and then covers him. You can go ahead, Jess. Measure that one, Tony, with a Richter scale right there. That was some impact. That's when it's 4th and 1, and they're trying to get that big first down to get in the end zone, and Simmons just stands up to the center and plugs the whole middle of the line. He did a great.
But in March of 89, Simmons began hinting a heel turn was coming away. He would break rules and show an aggressive streak. He cheated to defeat fellow babyface Junkyard Dog. You just don't do that.
What
in
a
a
piece
match
of
where
shit.
referee Teddy Long gave a fast
Holla,
three count and would allow questionable tactics by Simmons. Yeah.
To break the hold, Jay. And Simmons right on top. Wow, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Now, come on here.
Winner of the match, Ron Simmons.
Now, that's ridiculous.
Yeah. Look at
Holla,
that.
holla, holla.
That's amazing. Teddy Long
What's
was
up,
doing
man?
it even back then, you know?
Yeah, he
Also
was a
in the
legit
Hall of Fame.
referee too, Teddy Long was.
Yeah.
For a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. It's good stuff. During the tag match, Teddy Long came down to the ring and convinced Simmons to walk out of his partner during the match. Simmons would leave TV. However, soon after, a masked team called Doom debuted with 2 large and muscular masked men. Their manager was Woman. Amazing. They defeated the Steiner brothers at Halloween Havoc in 1989. Let me repeat that. They, being Doom, defeated the Steiner brothers at Halloween Havoc in 1989.
Doom in the masks too. You
Yeah.
did not know it was Simmons or Butch Reed at this point.
Unless you didn't know unless you knew.
I didn't
right?
even know if the insiders knew that much. I mean, maybe if you could look at him and be like, oh, that's Ron Simmons, maybe.
That's crazy. However, on the unfortunate side, the team would quickly fall apart. At Starrcade 1989, they lost every match in the round-robin tournament. Woman would dump the team and join the Horsemen, leaving the Doom team members without a manager. And then in February of 1990, the Steiner brothers defeated the Masked Men and forced them to unmask. They were revealed as Ron Simmons and Butch Reed. Shortly after this embarrassing loss, Teddy Long would become their manager.
Yeah, I don't know why that happened. Like earlier, it was Teddy Long convinced Simmons to, Teddy Long was becoming it. Yeah, he got suspended for being a referee for questionable. It was like a Danny Davis thing. And he was suspended for questionable tactics, and then he started recruiting Simmons, and he convinced Simmons to walk out, leave his partner one day, turning heel, and then Simmons just went off TV, and then these 2 masked men debuted without Long. Woman was their manager originally, and I always thought that was
It
funny.
doesn't make sense.
I think because who was the guy who originally started it, I almost
You
felt
almost think it's contractual issue instead.
yeah, for some odd reason they took like a couple of months break, like between Simmons
The
leaving
hard part
TV.
about that though is like, why would you have them defeat Steiners under the mask? If you
Well,
were
they wanted to push him. I think they wanted to push him, and then I don't know why.
I was like, hey, see, this is what we're going to do for you.
yeah, they're gonna be the Steiners.
but
I don't
it's
know whose voice that
WCW.
was.
That's all. Usually the answer is
Well,
it's
and that could
WCW.
happen easily in WWF too. I think me guessing it sounds like a contractual thing. The only reason why a big name person like that would be under a mask is because if they job him out, you don't know who it is, like technically. So that's what I'm thinking. Like they wanted to team them together. Something happened because it would have made sense if Long would have started, like calling to Simmons, convince him to leave the partner or whatever, and then he brings in Butch Reed to be his partner, and then bam, like that seemed like a nice continuous thing they could have done. But for some reason, they took like a 3 or 4 month break from talking about Simmons, and they put him under the mask. They were managed by Woman. It fell apart quick. It only lasted like 4 months, their relationship, and then Woman left them, and now Long's in, and then they lose a match for the masks, and there you go. Now it's Ron Simmons and Butch Reed. That was kind of a weird detour. That's all I thought.
Yeah, me too. Where does it go?
Yeah.
Unless it was a contractual issue.
That's my best guess.
Speaking of contractual weird stuff, in a pay-per-view called Capital Combat,
Jesus.
one of my favorites. That's fantastic. In May of 1990, Doom defeated the Steiner brothers again, but they defeated them to win the NWA WCW Tag Team Championships. This is where they, meaning Doom, are actually considered the first WCW Tag
During
Team
this is when the
Champions.
beginning of the fallout with the NWA started. So they technically won the NWA titles, but Turner had already bought Crockett's promotion and turn it to WCW in '88. So in that whole year turmoil that they're fighting back and forth with the NWA and how are we going to do this or whatever, they had that falling out right in the middle of Doom's reign. So Doom, they did win the NWA tag team titles, but then they became the first ever WCW tag team champions after the NWA and WCW decided to part ways. Yeah.
Simmons back in, double axe handle blow. Longest. Wait a minute. They double team Rick Steiner from the second rope. Can they hold him down?
He did.
No. Long diverted the referee. Doom has won the world titles.
Ladies and gentlemen, the winners and new World Tag Team Champions, Ron Simmons, Butch Reed, the team of Doom.
Yeah. So that's kind of interesting. A lot of people don't know that.
Yeah.
And I gave it to you guys as a fucking gift.
There you go.
So.
You're welcome. During their 9-month title reign, Doom would defend the titles against top teams such as the Rock and Roll Express, Ric Flair with Arn Anderson, and Arn Anderson with Barry Windham. Pretty stellar stuff going on there for 9 months. It's a pretty decent matchup to bulk that team up. But Doom would then lose those WCW tag titles to the Fabulous Freebirds at Wrestle War 91. That was in February of 91 at that time. The loss would split up the team of Simmons and
Butch Reed.
Terrible. Butch Reed, thank you. And would win the feud against and Simmons would actually win the feud against Butch Reed, defeating him in a cage match at WCW Super Bowl 1. That was Super Bowl 1 in May of 91. Simmons would drop Long as his manager and then turn face.
I think it was too.
Reed missed the roundhouse. Mind buster. He got it, baby. He got it.
Ladies and gentlemen, here's your winner, Ron Simmons.
Teddy Long had a plan, but it did not work.
I think it was too soon. Like I like. First of all, a
lot of people like Doom.
I would like to announce that Doom is one of the best tag team names ever. It's just a badass name. Fucking Doom. Like, what's your name? Doom. Like, okay, that's what it is. Like,
You're Doom.
Whatever you want, Butch and Ron. So I just think that I loved Doom. I know Joe, our mutual friend, loved Doom. Like, he's like just a badass name. But looking at it now through 2021 eyes and adult Jess, I think this is a good time to start talking about what's something we're going to get into anyway. And that's like, they were two black men that were put together and they weren't saddled with the stupid gimmick, anything stereotypical or anything. Doom was just Doom. And I loved going back and looking at that and recognizing that, because you're in a land of, especially if you were in the WWF, but wrestling in general is kind of like stereotype city, right? You have the Russians are always evil. Anyone from Iran is just a terrible person. They're evil. And they have curly shoes and they'll kick you with foreign objects. You know, like they have there's so many. And then Vince would blow up characters and snakes would come down and dogs and birds would come down. But I really liked looking back here at Doom and just seeing that they just went with, let's just market these two guys because they're amazing athletes and cool as shit. So let's put this cool ass Doom name on them. So I think that is a big milestone for him. And we're going to talk about him and his influence on the black community coming up, especially with the way they portray him later in his singles run. But I think it's just really cool to look back on Doom. And they didn't, again, I'm guessing, I'm hoping and assuming that Ron Simmons and Butch just didn't go for that shit. Meaning like, nah, we're Doom. We're just going to wear black tights and we're going to fucking clothesline you. We're going to kick the shit out of you like Demolition. And we're going to spine buster you. We're going to fucking do all this stuff because that's what we do. Power slams, like just a badass, like straightforward, stiff stuff. And I love Doom for that. It's really a precursor to what APA, would become with Simmons and Bradshaw. But back here, Doom was kind of.
I was thinking very Road Warrior-esque. Just come in and just punish people.
They had black electrical tape around their wrist too, instead of the white tape that most people always wore, and I love that shit too. So like, I really wanted to start touching on that because it's refreshing to look back here in like in the 89 and 90, and they were just like, there's Doom. They could have done anything stupid, right? Like with their, because Chief Wahoo McDaniel, Tatanka, all they're Indians, so they have to wear face paint, they have to wear a headdress, and there's so many others in the land of stereotypes. Again, oh, you're from Russia, oh, you're evil, you're Russian. Like, it's just, but here, it was just two guys. Tito Santana had a sombrero on his tights, for Christ's sake, and he became a matador, like, after a while. Like, so in a land of they're going to stereotype
Characters.
you at some point. It's refreshing to see like none of that bullshit played out. It was just, they were Doom and they were cool. They were really, really cool.
Yeah. And they were cool.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I wish it would have played out a little bit longer. But getting into that singles run, just getting into that singles run, Ron Simmons would defeat mid-card talent such as Diamond Stud and Oz, better known as.
And a little note too, he gave Oz his first loss ever. When they launched Oz wrestled like 2 or 3 times. And, Ron Simmons.
Go back and look in our archives for that dumpster fire.
Ron Simmons was the first man to beat.
But I think
Oz.
it's fantastic that you actually have Razor Ramon and Diesel here.
Yep.
But just as Diamond Stud and Oz, for those of you at home didn't know, those were the same people. Throughout the summer of 1991, he would destroy those guys. And October of 91 at Halloween Havoc, he would hire Dusty Rhodes as his one-time manager to challenge the Lex Luger for WCW World Title in a 2 out of 3 falls match. This match was better than anyone had expected. I hate to say it, Luger is a bit of a dumpster fire himself, and it's very difficult to mesh with him. I think Ron Simmons figured out how to do that. And not to mention, if Simmons can control a match a little bit, it shows he can hang at the top of the card and be a bit of a ring general, I think.
I love this match. It's one of my favorite Ron Simmons matches. And of all people, Luger was involved. I remember specifically getting this pay-per-view because I really liked the build-up and stuff. And again, it was Ron Simmons was All-American, and he was running up the stadium stairs and the training videos and stuff. And then Luger was like,
I love that stuff.
Yeah, Luger was like in just a sterile gym, pumping. It's crazy. It's awesome the way they did it. Luger was a heel.
It's seriously, it's like Rocky versus the Russian.
Like Luger was a heel here and everything. And it was 2 out of 3 falls match. And I'll never forget the first fall. He spinebustered the living shit out of Lex Luger and pinned him. And like the place went crazy.
And
like
what?
Just a Dusty Rhodes thing in between falls. Rhodes in this corner going, baby, you got to get your heart into it, baby. Like it was really cool the way they did all of it. I really cannot recommend the Lex Luger. Lex Luger versus Ron Simmons from Halloween Havoc. And I don't mean that to shit on Simmons at all. He handled this role perfect. Like his first main event match as a singles wrestler, like he did wonderful.
Go back and catch it.
This is a great match. Sure. Halloween Havoc 91, 2 out of 3 falls.
Yeah.
He ended up losing,
even though he would end up losing, the time he spent backstage with Rhodes helped him really define his career to that point. So
that's when you kind of got the inkling, like,
something there's something here.
People
something
like
that
Ron
we didn't
Simmons.
know is here, and that's where we get into the WCW World Championship picture along with his departure. Even though Simmons had an excellent showing against Luger, WCW was still in a major management turmoil in the back, which is what else is new? That's like Tuesday for them.
Right.
He floundered around being Simmons in the mid-card for the first half of 1992 and fused with Cactus Jack, and he would defeat him, being Cactus Jack, at Super Bowl II in February of 1992. He would also tag with Junkyard Dog against Mr. Hughes and Cactus Jack at TV tapings and at house shows. But
it was, this is the big one coming here. Like, it was weird. It's like they put him in the main event, and the only reason why stuff like this happens is because WCW went through so much shit in the back all the time.
Yeah.
Like, booking committee would get replaced every 8 months.
And they would never know who they had, what they had.
Yeah. So, like, I'm just glad that at least they kept him in the mid card or whatever. But yeah, it's like, how do you put this guy in the main event? You get everybody charged up. And by the way, in the feud with Luger, it's not funny. I don't know why I'm laughing, but it's how tone deaf 1992 wrestling was. Is Harley Race they have this confrontation, and Harley Race was the manager of Luger, and they go to sign the contract and I don't remember it. I can't remember. I'm trying to find it online too. It had to do something like, yeah, Simmons, like, don't worry, like, when you lose your chance here or whatever with, like, Luger, that's fine. I could always use another limo driver. Like, it was terrible. And, like, wow. So, like, I remember, like, them heating Simmons up back here. I know I just praised them for not, putting a stereotype on Doom and everything, but I think it's almost inevitable, at the very least, like, Simmons was being featured. I'm not saying that stuff has a place even to try to get heat, but it got some heat. Like, Race had no problem, like, getting in there and doing it. He'll do something later here, too, when we start talking about this here, too. There's another promo for Vader.
Vader. I'll just say it. Wrestling has a lot of black eyes in this time.
It does.
Because they don't... They're you can do a lot of things to get heat without doing what was done in the 90s, and it's just... It's here. You can't.
I have to say, though, it got worse later. Like it got worse in the Attitude Era. It really did. Like it got
That's
worse.
true.
We would think the 80s and early 90s were like the biggest stereotypical kind of improper tone deaf sort of. But then I'm like thinking of shit that got like thought up during the Attitude Era and even right after in the Ruthless Aggression. And I was like, that was way worse than anything ever. Anybody want to talk about the Mexicools for a second? Like,
Yeah.
that was like late. You know what I mean? It's like, holy shit.
It's
Like
just,
it was way worse.
Yeah.
It got way worse. But again,
don't you dare play the
I'm
theme
not
music.
going to
Don't you
talk
dare
about it
play
at all.
It's
just showing
just
that-
good.
I'm
So
just showing
Race
out the
made that
street
comment
vendors
at
I'm
the
gonna get really uncomfortable right now. But yeah, so on August 2nd of '92, at a house show in Baltimore, Maryland, a scheduled title match between Sting and WCW World Heavyweight Champion Big Van Vader was canceled after Jake Roberts, in a kayfabe situation, injured Sting. WCW President Bill Watts responded by holding a raffle. A raffle. All right.
you bought a ticket. All the wrestlers had to buy
So
a
I
ticket.
could have put my name in, right?
You had all the
to
wrestlers
determine-
digging money out of their wallets and shit.
Like you didn't know who the next
Can I buy
person in
5
line
raffle
was going to
tickets?
be. Like, come on. So they
No,
held
they had
a
to raffle
raffle
it.
to determine the
it
number
went
one
Sting.
contender.
It went Sting, and then everybody else. That's the way it went.
It's WCW.
And to put it in context here too, so before this house show, Vader beat Sting cleanly at the Great American Bash '92 to win the heavyweight championship
Yes.
and pinned him for 1, 2, 3.
Big
It was
old
kind of a
badass.
shocking moment. So Vader just like a month and a half before this been crowned king. So another promo that Harley Race did coming in, he was being Ron Simmons was being interviewed by Jesse Ventura. This is before this house show. And all of a sudden, Race comes out and he starts running. And he has Super Invader behind him, which it was Hercules under a mask, but he was just called Super Invader. And so he's running down Sting because he heard Sting talk to Vader. And it must have been right before Great American Bash because Harley Race referred to Sting as world champion. So he's like, Jesse Ventura just heard the world champion Sting run down Vader. He's in trouble. And then he looks at Ron Simmons and he starts poking Ron Simmons in the chest. And he's just like running him down. He's like, you need to be a good little errand boy and go back and give Sting a message for me. And he's all, first of all, and plays him crazy. He's like, maybe you got my name wrong. My name is not Gopher, and it's not the 1800s. I ain't your Gopher. You go back tell him your damn self. And like the place goes nuts. And then so Race looks at him and goes, I'm 7-time world, and I'm paraphrasing, I'm 7-time world champion. And when I was world champion, I had a boy like you carry my bags. And Simmons kicks the shit out of him. Simmons kicks the shit out of him.
Oh, he's
Let me tell you something, Mr. Simmons. 7 different times I was world heavyweight champion. And I had a like you carrying my bag.
Well, that was too insulting. What a distasteful remark. And Simmons has got to fight them both. The Super Invader hammering away at Ron Simmons. Race with that left hand.
he slapped the shit.
No,
out
he
of
kicked him
Good.
right in the gut, and then he starts hammering on him,
Good.
and then Super Invader goes over, and then they double team Simmons, but Simmons gets the heat back, and clotheslines Race, and Race is bumping like crazy, and he's like, do it, and I was like, oh, like I was like watching that segment, going again, tone deaf, 1992.
Yeah, totally. But Race would have bumped on his deathbed.
Oh,
seriously.
sure, fuck yeah. Race just wanted to do it. I think Race was just like, Simmons probably was like, I respect you. And Race is like, oh no, I'll say something and you will hit me. Like, and I guarantee you, like, that's probably how it played out. But
Yeah.
again, they're trying to get little racial heat on Simmons. Now, I'm not saying it's terrible. I guess to try to get heat, but did Vader need a heater? Vader was crazy. Like, Vader did, and I don't think Luger needed a heater either. Like, just
I always laugh too. Did he even need Harley Race? I don't think so. Like at one point,
probably you're right. I like the team of Vader and Race for sure, but yeah, all that was kind of leading up. So they were shooting. I think they kind of knew they wanted to get Ron in the picture. I don't know. I don't think Sting was legitly injured when Jake debuted here, and I remember.
Yeah, they said that you said according to their notes, it's a kayfabe injury.
Yeah, I don't know if maybe Sting was they just wanted to.
I think it protects Sting because you knew you wanted to run with. You were thinking about running with Vader for a while, maybe, but
yeah. Because it's like you said, it's just really weird. It's odd that there was like just Sting all of a sudden was a number one contender, and then now he's not.
This one sentence like really kind of shocks me. The way you wrote it, it's just like really, like because when you think about who he's doing too, like Simmons won the raffle and defeated Vader with a snap, scoop, power slam to win the championship. So that's Ron Simmons' scooping and power slamming a nearly 400-pound man.
Yes.
I mean, that's insane. Like that's
Dude, he was
ridiculous
strong,
amount
man. He was a
of
beast.
strength and power to be able to do that. By defeating
It was
Vader,
actually, and it's a
Simmons-
good match too, by the way. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's a very good match. I mean, we're only talking about one piece of it because we can only do so much in a Legacy. But once again, like Simmons can carry matches. He can work. We've known that for the entire time we've followed his career. And Vader's no slouch either. So these matches that look like they're going to be bad because it's two massive people don't actually turn out that bad because Vader is deceptively fast and doesn't blow up. And Simmons is in amazing shape. He's just a massive guy. And to be able to take, I don't know, what is it, probably a 10, 15-minute match and be able to scoop slam him after all that is pretty impressive. But by doing that, Simmons becomes the first African-American WCW World Heavyweight Champion. And
He got him in a power slam! He got him in a power slam! He got it! Simmons got it! Simmons has won the match! Simmons is a champion! Simmons has won the world title!
Ladies and gentlemen, the winner and new WCW World Heavyweight Champion, Ron Simmons!
He has realized his dream!
and one of the first recognized black world champions in wrestling history. I just want to let that sink in for a second because there have
already
been
deserves
black
that
world
legacy.
champions, but it's like the black world champion in Memphis.
Yeah.
This is a major
territories.
promotion, a worldwide promotion
Yep.
that's dealt in Japan and other places. There's only a few that may be bigger. WWF is one of them at the time. He's the first recognized black world champion in this type of sport ever on a world level.
Yeah,
On a
right,
real world
exactly. And
level.
that's what I was going back because they just kind of pushed him as like the first ever black heavyweight champion, which they're like Ernie Big Cat Ladd, and there's been other people that have done it, but they've won like a big regional championship. No small feat, but this is like
they call it a world championship,
Yeah.
but it's in a
After-
territory. This is not a territory.
after like Vince took over the world and all the territories died out and all the indies were kind of just shriveling up and it was just WCW and Vince left here at the beginning of the 90s. Like Simmons was the first African-American wrestler to ever win a world heavyweight championship on the national scale. WWF gets all the credit for being national. So was WCW. They traveled the US. They weren't as popular on the West Coast like WWF was, but they were on TBS like for years.
they had the television.
Yeah, they had
rights.
the television.
Yeah.
So they reached across the United States. WWE might have had a bigger foreign footprint, but that was irrelevant at that time. They were one of the big two. They might have been a distant two. Vince was number one, obviously. But at the same time, WCW was still the second, promotion, albeit only one of two. But WCW was still a big part of my childhood, and it was easily accessible. And for Simmons to do that, and they did it again. They did it right in that sense. I don't like that he won a house show. I'm not defending that, but they did the
that's
whole
stupid.
just saying, you're going to read on here, and I'm so disappointed in this run because with the company, not with Ron Simmons. Let me be clear on that. This could have been so special. The first ever African-American heavyweight champion. Like, I mean, they could have had Simmons with a year on this title run. Like, they could have done.
I don't know. On top of my head, Simmons versus Flair, Simmons versus Sting. Simmons, there's just how about putting Arn in there with them? I don't know.
I think Simmons
how
versus
about running through the horsemen.
Yeah, Simmons versus Arn, Simmons versus Rude, Simmons versus
Oh my gosh,
Simmons versus Austin. Just crazy shit.
We that's fantasy booking. Austin wasn't nearly where they thought he was, but yeah.
Well, he was part of the Dangerous Alliance, at that
true.
point.
Could have been a
So,
feeder.
Yeah,
Could have been a feeder.
Could have been a great.
So there could have been a lot of stuff, a lot of really cool shit they
sure,
did,
yeah.
and then they
could have
do
main
it like
evented them,
this.
too.
They do a big shock. They do a raffle. They do all this stuff or whatever, which is fine. And then I go back and watch the Vader match here. It's on YouTube. It's really, really fucking fun. And again, it's only fun. I liked it when it happened, but I look back on it now again and everything we're facing in the world of today. Like, I just remember
It holds up.
people jumping up and down. There's one fan that's in the front, and he was African-American, this fan was, and he was jumping up and down and scissor kicking as he was holding onto the rail. That's how excited we take for granted a lot of our heroes. And then when an African-American person can get that recognition, it means a lot. Conrad Thompson on, I don't remember which podcast it was. He has so many. He was talking about Harlem Heat, and he loved the Steiners. Conrad did. but he had a African-American friend that he grew up with, and they were over watching one time, and Harlem Heat won the tag titles. And he was so excited, his friend was. And he said, God, his friend was celebrating hard, like kind of what? And he was just like, yeah, it's cool. I like Harlem Heat too. It's kind of cool, I guess, that they won the titles. And his friend looked at him and just said, you like the Steiner brothers? And he goes, yeah. He goes, that's how I like Harlem Heat. And then Conrad's like years of just, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, because they're African-American and so are you. Now I get it. Like, he never thought. He just thought, oh, yeah, well, the Steiner brothers are good wrestlers. But when his friend said it like that, I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it.
I personally think it's more than that, too. Because
yeah. His friend's like, don't you understand? Someone like me is on that position that the Steiners were and that you used to cheer for. They're my Steiner brothers.
And that quite frankly, to be real about it, a lot of people have held that type of wrestler down for years.
Yes.
And then they finally get
when I watched,
I think personally, Jess, it's bigger than Conrad liking the Steiners. It's bigger than that.
No, that's what Conrad said. Like, just on that little, they were just talking about two tag teams.
It's
and
so much more.
When his friend said that, it was so much more than just a tag team debate or like a what.
It's so much more than just having the Steiners being your favorite wrestler. Too.
You're comfortable because someone like you, and I don't mean that to be disparaging that phrase, but that's how it was. And someone like you, oh my God, like they achieved this high level. You can do it too. That's what every kid wants to see. And, when someone that is your skin color or like you does that, you're like, I can now too. I think it's crazy. You go back and watch the crowd in this when Simmons wins. I mean, this guy is jumping up and down. That was his Hulk Hogan. Like that was, and not to compare the legacies or anything, because it's not about that. It's about he's me. He's like me. And like, look,
what that film feels at that moment, that
he just beat Vader. He just pinned Vader. He's the world champion.
You have to put it in the context too, just to be fair, just to kind of paint it with the right brush, is that Hulk Hogan being a champion for 4 years straight is great if you're a Hogan fan. But when someone that has been kept held down because of race, creed, color, whatever, finally does what someone like Hogan does, it's so much more important because of the industry, because of what's been put in place and what's been put in the way that somebody else has to overcome, which is much bigger. It's much bigger than Hogan winning a title. It's much bigger than saying.
And let me be clear, the whole place went crazy. All colors, by the way.
Yeah,
I was just focused on some of them that were just so they were jumping up and down like they
won
saw
everyone over. Simmons was over with everyone, but it's because of the fact too that someone like Simmons, where nobody thought it could happen, and nobody thought somebody of that creed and color could make it. Like, yeah, he can do it, and he could do the work. The thing is, we're talking about how disappointing the run is. He really did get the shaft. I think Simmons is a great ring general. I think he could control every aspect of a match if he had to. But he also allows people to bring their stuff in and make it good, make it fun. To be able to go from certain people and then go to Vader and make it good, that's the talent of Ron Simmons.
And he was pushed right. Like, he wasn't stereotyped. He was the all-American Ron Simmons. That's awesome that he was able to have that title, because like that pushed him with everybody. He was equal. He should be. And it's amazing. Like, when you go back and think, just the all-American Ron Simmons, people were like, hey, he's fucking American and he's working his ass off and and that's what it's all about. It doesn't matter what you look like or what you
represented the hardworking class,
I wish that was entirely true.
Well, you're right. But I mean, like these moments like this is 1992. It's impressive to go back and look at it.
It's an amazing step forward, is what we're trying to say.
And we got to live through it. And I know it's just silly wrestling, right? We're talking about, but I think a lot of things in regular culture
impacts people's lives.
And the thing is, it's not. And here's why: because you can go to any. I want to say for saying real. I don't like to say real, but for any real type of sport where the outcome is just the better person is going to win. But in this situation, it's entirely controlled, being real, by old white folks in the back.
Yeah.
And to be able to break through that is a testament to Ron's ability, his character, his patience, his ability to work with others. I think it's an incredible testament to him as a human being. And for someone to say, yeah, he can do it, and for some old white person in the back to say that he can do it, I'll never not be impressed with Ron Simmons. And we honestly haven't even got to the part where he was made entirely famous,
right?
Later on. So
He still has a long ways.
But yeah, it's amazing.
Still climbing.
It's incredible. But unfortunately, Simmons' world title run was short and mismanaged. Imagine that at WCW, something was mismanaged. He would defend his title in the middle of the card at WCW Halloween Havoc in '92 by defeating the Barbarian of all people. And I love me some Barbarian, but putting him in the world title.
Yeah, but a world title picture, come on.
And against Dr. Death Steve Williams, subbing for Rick Rude, that's just unfortunate because I would have loved to see a Rude Simmons match.
They were set. Awesome. It was supposed to be Rude versus Simmons for the WCW title at Starrcade '92, but Rude got it.
And that's bulked up Rude too, by the way. That's like Chunky Monkey Rick Rude right there. So that would have been good to see. And he was just put out a couple weeks due to injury at Starrcade of '92. The match was absolutely awful. It ended in a double count out, probably to protect Simmons. It was also
not to protect Simmons.
No?
It was for no reason. Let me tell you. So first of all, this horse shit of making your world champion.
Why wouldn't you just put him over? He's your champion.
Right. Why the fuck Barbarian? I mean, so just saying, I like the Barbarian too.
You know what I feel like? You put the Barbarian in thinking Simmons is going to have a long run. He's got to start somewhere, defeat the Barbarian.
No. You only do that to me on syndicated television. You never put the Barbarian as a world heavyweight champion contender and make me pay money for it. That is horse shit. That is a disservice to me. That's disrespecting my wallet, first of all. Secondly, it's disrespecting Ron Simmons. Like, seriously, he's your world champion. Sting was facing Vader and Rude and big ass Luger, all those people in that last year. And then Simmons fucking wins the title, beats Vader, makes history. And then you give him fucking Barbarian? Come on, man. Like, what the fuck are you doing?
And then you have to give him Steve Williams too, which is like,
and they base this whole pay-per-view Halloween Havoc around Jake and Sting, which is fine. I'm not saying you can't do that, but
that's not your world title.
Give him a credible opponent. Now, if I'm remembering again off the top of my head, it could be wrong. I think it was supposed to be Cactus Jack versus Simmons here, but Cactus got injured before Havoc. Cactus was in Barbarian's corner, and they were like kind of buddies. So I think that's what happened. But even then, and I love me some Mick Foley, but this was 1992 Cactus Jack. He was not the Cactus Jack that we know, or that he became when he became Mankind and, brought Cactus to WWF. So even if you gave him Cactus Jack, the fact that you're still putting him on the middle of the card, and Cactus Jack was a mid-carder here. It's like they did the same. Brett was champion around the same goddamn time and did the same fucking thing with Brett. I'm watching Brett defend the world title against fucking Virgil on Saturday Morning Wrestling, which I'm like, Hogan would never do that. Like, you compare him to champions that were recent. Hogan would never do that. Hogan would never wrestle in the middle of the card on a pay-per-view when he was champion, and he would never wrestle someone like the Barbarian.
Never, brother.
That doesn't work for me, brother.
That would be like, no offense, that would be like Hogan defending the world title on a pay-per-view in the middle of the card against Rick Martel. That's what that would be.
It was in the middle of the card. Williams was only wrestling tag.
And then, going to Starrcade, he's supposed to fight Rude. Okay, WCW gets a pass. But the sub for him is Dr. Death Steve Williams. Let me speak on Steve Williams for a fucking second. I respect his Japanese career. I know he's a tough guy. Everybody tells the same story, especially JR. If you listen to him till he's blue in the face about Steve, Dr. Death Williams. And he died of cancer, and I hate that shit. And like, I respect him as a wrestler. And I've seen a lot of his Japanese stuff, and he's a stiff mother trucker. He's super tough, built like a brick shit house. However, he had just wrestled tag wrestling before. He was teaming with Terry Gordy, and they used him, Dr. Death, as the substitute.
What's wrong with Terry Gordy?
No, nothing is wrong. But he just literally was wrestling only tag team wrestling all the months leading up, and then he's the replacement for Rude. It goes Rick Rude and then Steve Williams. Give me a fucking break. Like, give me a break. Like,
and if that's the case, you should have squashed him.
They're sabotaging, and then it ends in a double count out, Dave. You should be more mad than me. You hate that shit on pay-per-views.
I do hate it.
So who were they protecting? Steve Williams? We don't want Ron Simmons, our world champion, to pin a tag wrestler, Steve Williams? Is that how they decided that? Is that how they said, let's have them both?
Yeah, you've totally convinced me.
What the fuck are they doing?
Who's back there, Vince?
It's legit.
Honestly,
Simmons
should have lariated him and scoop slammed and walked out.
Hell yes. And by the way, that wasn't the main event of Starrcade.
Yeah.
Another 2 pay-per-views in a row where the world champion defends the title against a lesser opponent that doesn't deserve the shot in the middle of the fucking card. What are you trying to do?
And that
to
shows a
run?
lack of faith in somebody, quite frankly, that was way over. And there's a lot of reasons that we could talk about that we speculate, but I already know. We all know why.
God damn it!
Just telling you. I'm just saying.
Hey.
Yeah. So, let me.
You could jump to the At a House show in December.
Yeah, in December of 1992, Vader would defeat Simmons in a goddamn house show to regain the WCW.
So
World
Simmons
Heavyweight
wins it at a
Championship.
house show, and then Vader wins it back at a house show, and then in between they make Simmons defend the title in the middle of the card against lower mid card wrestlers. Amazing. How do you fuck that up? We say that about WCW all the time about certain things, but seriously, that's what I was saying at the beginning. How special could this reign have been with all that history and what he did and what he accomplished? And, holy shit.
Stupid.
Holy shit, they fucked this up. Bad.
Yeah, could have been amazing. Afterwards, Simmons was regulated to mid-card status in 93.
That's because that's what you do to former world champions, by the way. You just throw them down the fucking card.
Just put him mid-card. He eventually became a bitter heel who felt like the fans abandoned him after he lost the championship. Simmons unsuccessfully challenged Dustin Rhodes for the United States Heavyweight Championship and Paul Orndorff for the World Television Championship during his last months in WCW. So this is a classic job out. By the spring of 94, Simmons was working for WCW without being signed to a contract. Also, Simmons was briefly managed by Sherry Meltzer during this
I
time.
did not know that, by the way. I don't think I ever saw. They must have aired a syndicated match or something where Sherry was Simmons' manager. That's kind of crazy to think about.
Trying to make something work, but he quietly left the company. So this is the classic. If you're not ready to make a move and they know they don't want anything to do with you, they're gonna job you until you finally quit. And that's what they did here.
It's fucking trash. It's a bunch of trash.
I don't think anybody wants to admit that, but that's what happened.
It's a bunch of trash.
Why wouldn't you re-sign him if you really wanted to keep him?
Right.
And Simmons was a younger wrestler at that time.
And he did everything they wanted from his match.
Exactly. He didn't cause any problems.
Yeah. From his match with Luger to what he dealt with all that shit. And that's fine. Not everyone can be world champion, but let him win the U.S. title or something afterwards. Let him be a force. Let him fucking develop. Heaven forbid you make a fucking star. Jesus Christ.
WCW.
No, but let's hire Flair back for the 20th time. Let's get Hogan in here. Let's get Savage in here. Fucking A. What? Amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's been hard to live with, man.
I bet it has.
At least he feels guilty, that Hogan.
He should feel guilty.
I do, brother. Sorry, Farouk.
Let's get into where it gets a little better for him in the World Wrestling Federation. After a brief stop in WCW, Simmons would join the WWF as Farouk Assad. He wore a less than flattering singlet. Look at it, cuz behind him.
God damn it.
The blue. It's always about foam with Vince at this time. Gladiator helmet and chest pads. Sonny would be his manager, which is the only good part about this gimmick.
Max Moon
In
Part
July
2.
22nd of 1996 edition of Raw, he made his debut by attacking Ahmed Johnson. The attack caused Ahmed to forfeit his IC title to take time off. I think, was Ahmed already kind of hurt here? I'm trying to remember.
They did the whole kidney thing. He damaged
he
his
actually had you're going to read on here too, yeah.
Oh, he had. Oh, that's right. He had his kidney issues.
Yeah.
He almost died.
Yeah.
Whoever he is, just all over Ahmed Johnson. Oh, no! Look at Sonny cheering this guy on.
Yeah, he was
I
in
remember
bad
that as a
shape.
kid.
In the following IC title tournament, he would actually lose in the finals to Mark Mero.
So stop.
So sorry about that.
Damn
That's
it, stop.
unfortunate.
So you might say, Jess, you're bitching about the way WCW treats him, and then he gets debuted in WWF like this. I would agree with you. However, do not underestimate the power of the WWF machine. So yes, he did debut in a stupid foam shit and helmet and whatever the fuck is behind Cuz.
It's lame.
But the thing is, it is super lame, and he puts Ahmed out, even though Ahmed was, he was not healthy.
On his way
so
out.
yeah.
Yeah.
So then wouldn't you think that he would win the goddamn tournament, win the fucking IC title, but instead he loses to Mark Mero? What the fuck? Like what? But again, the only reason why I give the WWF the pass over the way WCW handles him was the WWF machine. When Vince fucking puts money behind you and nobody does it better. With vignettes, with all that stuff. So again, as dumb as he entered WWF here,
Well,
he was in a much better place, even though Vince wasn't going to put him up at the top of the card per se. Like, I think Ron Simmons.
They knew they had dollar signs.
Yeah, Ron Simmons knew, like, you know what? I'm in a better place. They know Vince pushes wrestlers. He's from wrestling. He bought the company from his dad.
Gimmicks.
Yeah.
Once you find the right gimmick, he'll put
every
money
8 months they fucking hire someone new for WCW. So I'll never catch on here. But, you know, so I love his choice to go from WCW to WWF. You wouldn't think it was a good choice by watching the way, or just what Dave read about the way he debuted, but it gets better. Go ahead,
I'll give you the perspective of a kid watching it. You know, I wasn't thinking like as a kid that was goofy looking. I do think it's goofy looking now. But that wasn't what was on my mind. It was like, wow, look at this big behemoth Ahmed Johnson, and then this new guy just comes out of nowhere and like destroys him and injures him and his kidneys, and he's like, I think he was even coughing up blood if I remember Ahmed Johnson.
Yes.
Like they were playing all that, and like to me, and this is just the talent of Farouk too. At this point, Farouk, Ron Simmons, it made you think like, wow, like I'm thinking like this is real. Like this guy is real. This guy's mean. This guy's really mean. And now how are my heroes? Are they going to be able to stop this guy? You know what I'm saying?
Even
like,
more reason that he should have won the IC title tournament.
Or I mean, he's, you know,
he puts Ahmed out. You fucking let him win the tournament. He's IC champion, and he put Ahmed out on top of it. So that's a feud waiting.
But to a kid
does
watching
get healthy,
someone like that,
you know?
And then to a kid watching that, like me, I would want to see one of my heroes overcome this, you know, this big obstacle that just came
Ahmed
in and
coming
took out
back, right?
like Ahmed. Exactly. Yeah. I didn't care for Ahmed even as a kid, but you know,
right.
Pro River Punch.
He was over. Ahmed was over. I have to say
he was actually though. He was.
In November of '96, Farouk would lose the Gladiator gimmick and drop Sonny as his manager. He would form a renegade faction called the Nation of Domination.
Yes,
and
I love this version.
Based on
I know no
the
one
Nation
is
of Islam and Black Panther Party concepts. So those original members were Farouk, PG-13, which was Wolfie D and JC
little rapping gang,
and Clarence Mason, who was the manager.
Yes,
and Crush,
actually, and there were
Vega.
3 other guys that were actually the original.
Savio Vega.
They were they were
Crush.
actors.
Oh!
Remember when he first
started?
When he first brought in Clarence Mason, he was doing the promos. There was 3 guys that were dressed like him, and they were part of the Nation. So people just thought they were 3 brand new independent wrestlers they were bringing in or whatever. They were actually paid actors because they didn't know how they were going to book the rest of the gimmick yet. So they brought PG-13 over, which you know, as Conrad would say, I don't know when we're going to ever talk about them again. PG-13 was cool as shit, dude. I loved them.
They were.
They came from the USWA, and they were really fucking fun. Like, they were really funny. And they were just 2 skinny white guys in there, like, just fucking rapping and, like, just, you know, talking, like, you know, with street talk and stuff like that. But they took the best doomsday devices I've ever seen. Like, they,
oh my god, dude, they would.
They're the best.
But they were, they were like these 2 little bitch antagonists, like right next to Joel Farouk.
That always got their comeuppance, but protected the major factions of the group.
Yeah,
that's how it works.
So that was the original Nation was 3 paid actors, Clarence Mason,
but those
and
3
PG-13.
Those 3 paid actors get replaced, right? Shortly after Crush, D'Lo Brown, and Savio Vega joined the group. 2 out of 3 ain't bad. You can decide who.
How dare you?
Oh no!
I didn't know you didn't like Savio Vega.
Johnson. Yeah, that's the one.
Los Boricas, eh?
They would feud with Ahmed Johnson and LOD for the first half of '97. At WrestleMania 13, they would lose a 6-man street fight against Ahmed Johnson and LOD.
Underrated, good match. Go back and watch it.
It is a good match. It's a really good match.
And after an unsuccessful attempt to win the WWF Championship from The Undertaker at King of the Ring 97, Farouk would fire Crush, Mason, PG-13, and Savio Vega. You should have only fired one of them.
Stop it.
He would then recruit Kama, so you deduced that.
Oh, fuck.
And Ahmed Johnson, keeping D'Lo to be the new, bigger, badder, better, and blacker.
His
that
words.
Was actually said, right?
Quotes.
It was said, Nation of Domination.
Well, Savio Vega, guess what? You remember this. As hot as a jalapeno pepper is, your ass is fired as of today. Here's another one. Crush, that wasn't making any waves here in the WWF. Just idle, just moseying along. But when he joined the Nation, what happened? I took him to championship status. What did he do? Stabbed me in my back. Well, Crush, you can join your place, take your place in the unemployment line. Fire! You're fired! You can't fire me, punk! I'm good.
They're putting it out there. I mean, like we talked about the stuff about, hey, the old white man in the back finally gave someone a chance and then shit on it. I love this storyline because they're going to make this a bigger, better, badder, blacker nation because they're going to shit on everyone else. It plays to this is the kind of thing that plays to everything that happens to Ron Simmons in real life, and he gets to play that back.
Yes.
That's what's great.
Now I'm in control.
The whole that's a perfect phrase because the whole time I was praising like wrestling promoters for not necessarily going mega stereotypy on him because of the color of his skin. On his terms,
they
and this was a place when wrestling was Vince was telling Austin, I don't fucking know, you tell me what you want to do. And I think that Simmons came in right at the right time, and he just wanted to try something like, what if I kind of get a little bit. Everyone wants to write racial storylines about me. What if I get racial? What if I get a little like, hey, you're holding us back and this and that. And I'm gonna be,
which is really happening,
right? It was happening even back then in 1997, and it was just
hell yeah.
It was so like right in your face. And I'm gonna be honest and humble as a white guy. I could not connect with this gimmick because I'm not going to be ignorant and sit here and tell you.
I would argue we connect more with it now than we did then.
I don't know. Yes, I don't know what it's like to be judged on the color of my skin. I don't know what we're going to keep in this episode or what we're going to decide we want to. But I'm going to be honest and be a man and just say I don't know what it's like. So I don't have an opinion.
You don't know what that's like.
I don't have an opinion. So when this gimmick, when the Nation came around, I don't want to use the phrase I didn't care for it because that sounds like I'm insensitive, and that was not my feeling. But I didn't care for it in the sense of like a wrestling fan, I couldn't connect with it. Wrestling characters that get over, they connect with you on a level. Whether it's something about religion, something about your race, something about your sex, something about whatever.
But I would argue that how many people did it connect with, right?
No, that's what I mean. And so
I'm with you.
Looking back, like what you just said, I really like look back at the Nation, and nobody gives it the credit early on that it deserved.
It's massive.
It's massive in the sense that the statement that Simmons made and that Vince was allowing them to do. They were just trying to find that chord to strike with you, right? That something, and they were heels too. So I hate to say this, but if there were some racist people out there, fine. And I don't mean to be a dick. I'm just saying that
because they were going to boo the shit out of it. And
right.
They were
only when we go to the southern states we do this gimmick.
Right. And so
every other state.
And again, I'm guessing I wasn't backstage, obviously, but I think Vince and Ron knew this, and they were just like, "This is fine. You're going to get the people that are going to connect with you that are." Hey, yeah.
I hate to be that guy, but Simmons is the kind of guy that can get a pulse on, and it's not hard to get the pulse on how an African American person is judged in this country,
right?
Especially then, 20
you
years
just
ago,
say
25
it.
years ago.
You just say it, and it's true.
And he's like, no, and I might as well make some money off of it. That sounds really bad.
It's not.
But I can argue. But I can argue that he flipped the script and got people to really think about what happens for real in this country on a judgment based on the color of your skin. And the fact that he flipped it and got people to get really pissed about it, and he got paid. Kudos.
Well, and it was I went back and watched a lot of promos of theirs too, and
they're good.
Just watching with 2021
really
eyes, I was like, oh, now I get it. Like, wow, this is like strong, and like Simmons was.
You could do this now.
Well, he was cutting promos. Simmons was always pretty good promo. People don't give him credit for it, but he knew what he was saying, back then. But here he's speaking about kind of life, and so. When he would talk, Simmons was strong and just like talking and like, no more of this and we're not standing for it. And it was just really kind of powerful when I go back and look at it with 2021 eyes. I'm like, man, like this was just stupid wrestling back in 1997. And you had guys that were able to get on there and just be like, I'm going to say what the fuck bothers me. You're holding me down. I'm sick of this shit. Like, and it's just kind of, I would say probably 2 years later, that group came along, it would have been a bigger deal. But back here in like the infancy stage at the end of 96, beginning 97, I don't think people knew what to do with it yet, just like they didn't know what to do with Austin yet. Even though he was already Austin 316 here, they didn't know yet what to do with it. There's a
ton of did it hold up in this episode, and there's a ton of ahead of their time items in this episode.
This
already.
Definitely runs into that ahead of their time.
It runs into all of that.
Farouk is he's an unselfish veteran. I think he also probably thought of well, why not give other guys the rub too in this group if it can help build other stars?
Well, it's coming. It's coming. Let's talk about that right now.
Yeah, exactly. That's I feel like Farouk would have to say that too.
Shortly after Ahmed Johnson would have to leave the group again due to the legit injuries he was facing, they would replace him with Rocky Maivia, who would eventually become The Rock. and they would feud with Savio Vega, who made his own faction called
Los Boricas.
Boricas. And Crush, who formed his own faction called the DOA. I don't even know why this is in here.
Stop.
Mark Henry would
Gang
join the
warfare,
Nation.
Dave. Gang warfare.
All right.
I like the
All
game
right.
warfare.
All right, Crush. Settle down.
Whoa.
Mark Henry would join the
Put a
Nation
crush.
in January of 1998. As The Rock was slowly developing his character, he would challenge the leadership choices of Farouk and eventually overrun to take over said group of the Nation. Really good stuff here. You can see, and again,
A lot of people remember this part because,
and that's the thing. Like Simmons built this, but then
an
Simmons
article
also
I read was perfect about it because they were talking about when the Nation was originally done, it was about race and like oppression, but when the Attitude Era kicked off and The Rock got known, The Rock used it because The Rock is of color as well, but he used it as just a character launch point. So then the Nation became character-wise after this because like The Rock, it was all about The Rock's character and over-the-topness, and then he would challenge Farouk, and Farouk kind of looked like the boring fuddy-duddy, that didn't want to have any fun and didn't ever want to The Rock would just call him out. So, and it became a different Nation because after this, they developed the Godfather gimmick, they developed whatever, and they said this Nation is what a lot of people remember, and Owen Hart was a member of it for a second.
The Black Heart.
Yeah, Black Heart. And like
it was fucking great.
It was just people remember that, but the early one in 96, 97 was super groundbreaking because they were very sterile and it wasn't a character driven faction. It was a fact driven faction. It was real. And then now it turned to The Rock, just a silly fucking over the top character. He comes in there and it worked, but this is kind of where Farouk has to sort of part ways. And that's why I really believe that I think Farouk meant it when he first started it. He connected with the product when he was able just to talk.
Yeah.
Like in the early Nation. And then Farouk's never had charisma in the sense of like Sting or whatever.
Like
I don't mean that to shit on him. Farouk's fucking Farouk. Simmons is Simmons,
serious.
right? He's serious. That's it. There's no gimmick. Even when they were first the acolytes, they had to paint the shit on their chest. I'm sure he was uncomfortable with that because he's like, I just want to go out there and fucking spinebuster someone,
just tear somebody's head
but
off.
it changed.
I'm a Christian, man.
Yeah.
But you also understand. I think that Ron Simmons understood that where this was going, and he knew where the Nation of Domination was taking The Rock, and this was going to pay off. And it's just where it kind of formed on its own.
Yeah,
right?
Cementing his legacy, regardless.
But he's also man enough to understand that it was coming to an end, and that's okay. So at WrestleMania 14, The Rock would defend his IC title against Ken Shamrock.
Good match.
Farouk came down to the ring acting like he was going to help The Rock and said he told The Rock, no. And he walked away. This turned Simmons' face?
Yeah, Simmons.
This turned Ron Simmons' face, and he was kicked out of the Nation of Domination the next night on Raw. So,
Wait a minute! The Nation attacking Farouk! Man! Armadillo and the world's strongest man, Mark Henry, attacking Farouk! It's 3-0! My, what a shot! What a shot to the ribs! And now The Rock is telling the rest of the Nation to step back. And it looks like it may be rock bottom for Farouk.
Raw. So The Rock takes that over fully at this moment, which leads into some badass shit. I love it. This is 1998 late. Simmons began teaming with Justin Bradshaw. They formed an occult-like team called the Acolytes. That's where you kind of get, like you said, just the crazy writing
The
on their chest.
Satan-like symbols put on them or whatever.
Yeah, originally managed by the Jackal, they were a violent, stiff-style team, the only way Bradshaw knows how. Shortly after, the Jackal left the WWF, and the team joined The Undertaker in his faction called the Ministry of Darkness. During The Undertaker's spell, they carried out his demonic and cult-like orders. But in mid-1999, the Acolytes defeated X-Pac and Kane to win the WWF Championships at Fully Loaded.
Shane caught X-Pac in the head with that steel chair. There's a clothesline from hell. Are you kidding? And we got new tag champions, damn it.
Here are your winners and the new World Wrestling Federation Tag Team Champions, the Acolytes.
Looks like Shane is...
Super cool. After the Ministry broke up, Due to The Undertaker having an injury, Farouk and Bradshaw continued to team together. They changed their gimmicks from that satanic cult look to the beer drinking, cigar smoking, card playing badasses called the APA, the Acolyte Protection Agency. During their promotion services to the highest bidder, Farouk adapted his catchphrase, which was "Damn!" around this time. They would win a total of 3 WWF Tag Team Championships during their run, and the feud with teams like the Dudley Boys, the Hardy Boys, the New Age Outlaws. Jackie would also accompany them. That was awesome. I totally forget about that. Good call out, Jess. The APA would team until 2002 when Farouk was drafted to SmackDown and Bradshaw was drafted to Raw.
The clothesline from hell, and the APA have done it.
Here are your winners and the new World Wrestling Federation Tag Team Champions, the APA.
The APA with a very
Simmons dropped the Farouk name, went back to Ron Simmons, saying damn on every taping he could, until he left TV in December of
2002.
I know we went through that, but this is some shit. This is
their
Ron Simmons that
skits
everybody
back
talks
when they
about.
had the door up and like they made
I
everybody
love that,
knock
dude.
on
a door that was just
you
a door
could-
with
Come
no
in.
walls around
when
it.
anybody would
Yeah.
walk around the door,
Knock.
they'd be like, "You didn't knock," and they would make him go
Yeah,
back around and
yeah.
knock on the door. The Rock was funny with them. Like they did all like those skits with the APA was so fun, and like the poker, and they would
was
just be
great.
smoking and drinking, and if somebody come back and have a problem, they'd be like, they'd play him. And if they won the card game, they would go and help them or whatever. They did all kinds of cool stuff. Jackie would sit there and
Love
smoke
it.
cigars with them.
Yeah,
and drink
smoke
beer.
cigars.
Like,
Yeah.
it was awesome, man. Like I have different opinions about Bradshaw because we all know he's sort of a bully or that's what we've heard. We're not in the industry, right? Like we just believe what we read, but at the same time, like I just
You know, you could have knocked on our door. You walked right through our wall.
Like the door right there, man. It's the
That
door.
wall, that's our door. It's our office.
How about a knock? See?
It's your office. Like that. You weren't raised in a barn.
Get the door.
Watch the Rock.
Oh, I'll beat the whole door, man.
What's up, man? Great job at SummerSlam. The Rock is back.
Proud of you, brother. The WCW title is finally where it needs to be.
Question's exactly where it's going to stay.
Have a
right
seat,
in the
man.
WWE.
Hey, how about a
they were a great team. They were fun, and they are a team I totally remember. And they were
The hard part.
they were my
for
style
this
of wrestlers. I
particular-
love stiff shit, man. It's fun to watch
Yeah.
stiff shit. I don't like people hurting
I-
people, but I love stiff shit. And they would. Oh
Well,
man!
and I think the
like,
hard part, what most people remember, is Bradshaw's lariat during
Jesus,
his
the
times.
clothesline from hell.
The clothesline from hell.
Yeah.
But I mean, Ron Simmons was key to this, and he did a lot of power moves of his own. But I also believe that me and Simmons would be like, look, give Bradshaw his time in the sun too. It was equal time for them, and allowing Bradshaw to kind of come out like that. You can argue there's no JBL without Ron Simmons. I think that's fair.
Oh yeah.
Because there's no way that JBL wouldn't be able to come out on his own and produce this. But JBL got the lariat over, got the clothesline from hell over. But Ron Simmons was a part of that just nasty tag team that was stiff, and everybody loved to see when they came out. It was an LOD pop. It was the closest thing to it. When those guys come out, they knew someone was going to get their ass kicked.
And I think too,
that
going
was
back
that
to his
matter,
singles
right?
run and the way he was there, I think I could be wrong. Again, this is us guessing. We're fans giving our opinions. I think verbally and emotionally, he loved the Nation. Beginning of the Nation stuff because he could get out what he wanted to get out. But I think wrestling as a pro wrestler, he found his niche with the APA. Like this was what Ron Simmons wanted to be all along. Like he wanted to be somebody that would just smash you. And
I haven't heard about interviews with Simmons, but I could think of two things that he'd be most proud of. One would be the World Championship, and the other one would be the Nation of Domination, because he created it, controlled it. He's responsible for The Rock being The Rock, in a sense, like coming into his nation. I don't know which one he weighs higher, but it's got to be one of those two things, right?
Probably the Nation.
and I think you said it
might be
perfect
the
too.
Nation.
APA, Bradshaw wouldn't
APA
have,
though too, yeah.
Bradshaw would not have been the single star that
There
he
you go.
was without being with
He would
Ron
not have been a
for
world
while.
champion.
Like because he
Ron
was
never be a
Simmons built
wrestling
JBL to be a
god.
world champion. How crazy?
I
is
agree
that?
with that. I think that like people don't really realize behind the scenes, a lot of the pairings and stuff are done for a reason. They had tried Bradshaw a little while before, and they just couldn't get out of Bradshaw what they
working.
wanted. He was even a new blackjack for a while, and like it
Yeah,
was just
I remember that.
they couldn't figure out something for him. And when he got teamed with Ron, I think something something about Ron calmed Bradshaw, where he was just like, "This is it. Like I can." And then Bradshaw.
It's almost like he made Bradshaw comfortable and got him into the.
And Bradshaw would cut good promos, and he was kind of the funny animated one of the group. Like Simmons would be like, "No, man, we're doing this." He'd be like, "Come on, Ron!" Like he would get like excited or whatever.
That's
like
right.
it was just, and they played off each other. Without Ron, I don't think Bradshaw would have found JBL. I don't think at all. I really don't.
No, he wouldn't have had the confidence to do it.
Yeah,
and be that chicken shit heel that eventually wins a world title.
He had to warm up
to losing to Guerrero, by the way.
Yeah,
which is fantastic in itself. So much stuff. Come on, give Ron the comeuppance of what he's provided to the industry. It's pretty fantastic.
Yeah,
he would
That's why
return
he gets a
in
legacy.
WWE in June of 2003, begin to team with Bradshaw again. In his last storyline, APA would lose the match on SmackDown, and though the general manager Paul Heyman would fire them, instead he fired Ron Simmons, but only told Bradshaw he could stay. In the storyline, Bradshaw accepted Heyman's offer, and Simmons walked away, accusing him of turning his back on their friendship because they were, Simmons was an ECW guy for a small period of time.
I said I was firing you, Farouk.
What? Oh, well,
You need to think about your own future, Mr. Bradshaw. I think you should know. I think very highly of you. You're a respected financial analyst who's had a major book published and who's now on Fox News.
We don't need this. Let's get out of here, bro. Hey, hold on, man. Don't tell me. After all these years, well, I'll be damned.
In reality, Simmons was wanting to retire from in-ring work due to injury and age, just kind of started to wear on him. The WWE actually let Simmons go to the backstage misconduct after a mentioned pre-tape segment aired in 2006.
No, so what happened was, I guess.
What was it?
They actually, the day that segment aired, so the whole storyline was APA were back together. They got granted a World Tag title shot. And then they were walking down the hall. Cena did some embarrassing shit to Heyman, and I think Heyman was general manager or he was former. He just became former, something like that. I think he was still general manager. And Cena did something to humiliate him. So Heyman's walking back from the ring all flustered because Cena did some bullshit to him. And Ron and Bradshaw are walking down the hall going to their match, and he bucked it. He's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, Paul Heyman. Excuse me." This is what Ron said. I didn't mean to almost run into you. And Heyman's like, "That's fine." He was like, "Man, out there, damn!" And he did a whole thing. And so Heyman's like, "Oh, you like that?" He's like, "Oh, you like that? Like, you think that's funny?" He's like, "Well, you know what I think is really funny is you guys have a world tag title match tonight, right?" And they're like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Well, I think it's really funny that if you guys don't win, you're fired."
You're fired.
And so he did it, but the way he did it, I didn't do it justice. Paul Heyman perfectly played it to where he didn't directly address JBL. He just addressed Ron. He just said "So you and your partner think this is really funny?" He was like, "Well, for your sake, I hope that you win tonight, because if you don't, if you and your partner fail to win the world title, you're fired." That's the way he said it to Ron. But you don't think that. And then when they lose the match, they come back and then
he's like, "No, I didn't say
yeah,
Bradshaw."
he's like, I didn't say anything about Bradshaw. I said, you're fired. Bradshaw, you can stay if you want. I see a lot of talent in you, blah, blah, blah. So then when they left, Bradshaw looked down, and Ron's like, "Come on, man, let's go." And he was looking down Bradshaw, and he's like, "Are you serious, man? You're going to stay after all this time?" But in real life, after that aired on SmackDown, they fired Simmons.
So what was the reason?
Yeah,
what was the backstage misconduct?
Jim Ross was asked about it. Bruce Pritchard Bruce Pritchard just went with the generic thing of it was time. But JR said, I don't know if it was a failed steroid test or if it was, he said, I don't know. It was misconduct. There's a rumor that he got in Big Show's face. Big Show pissed off Simmons. And Simmons told him to get up and he was going to knock him out in front of everybody. And so JR said, that would have been ugly. That would have been just fucking crazy, to see Simmons. So
I'm not sure who's going to come out on that.
Yeah. So that was the whole thing, is that he was in a bad mood and he was getting older and he wanted to retire anyway. And was Big Show pissed him off, and I guess he did instigate. So again, this is just what I've gathered. I don't know. We're not a news site again, folks. Calm down. I heard that it could have been.
What you hear.
It could have been some misconduct. That wasn't a failed drug test. It was misconduct, and he was just getting to the end of his rope anyway with everything.
And you know, it's like
he probably has.
That's
all
what
the answers.
Dave Meltzer. What do you think about everything that's going on right now?
Yeah.
and you know, it's like
So yeah,
In 2006, Simmons would begin to appear randomly on WWE television and begin the what was that again? I can't read my notes. Damn. There it is. Skits. He would pop up on special anniversaries and shows or the big pay-per-views just to get a damn in there. In 2014, Simmons was inducted to the WWE Hall of Fame by his partner JBL. Damn. Well, damn deserved is what I say. Ron Simmons doesn't get enough play, doesn't get enough credit. There's many that can argue that one, JBL wouldn't have been a champion. You can argue that The Rock wouldn't be The Rock that you know today that's attracting millions of viewers on national television for a TV syndicated show. Just phenomenal stuff. I mean, there are a lot of catalysts. He might be the yeast in the bread, so to speak, for a lot of people. And the guy could work. The guy, could hold a title. I think ahead of his time is in there. I think if he was available now in the shape he was in the late 80s, early 90s, he'd be a part of a major world title run like the stuff we're seeing right now
with Bobby Lashley.
For people of color. And all I can say is fantastic stuff. The picture that Jess has here and also behind him with the WCW title looks fantastic. Short-lived. It should have been longer, and there should have been more of it. The man's amazing, still kicking. Championships and accomplishments. Are you ready?
yes.
Pro Wrestling Illustrated called him the Inspirational Wrestler of the Year in 1992. In WCW, he was the United States Tag Team Champion with Big Josh. He was also the WCW NWA Tag Team Champion with Butch Reed as a part of Doom. And he was the WCW World Heavyweight Champion. But in World Wrestling Federation / Entertainment, he was the WWF Tag Team Champion 3 times with Bradshaw of the APA. Damn!
It's
fantastic.
Nice list
stuff.
right there.
I wish it was more. He's entitled to more.
But I mean, the stuff that he did,
Just a
other than
heavyweight
maybe
champion. Like he proved that he's one of the best. He's one of the best tag wrestlers
I just
ever,
think-
and nobody talks about it. Even though Doom they were only together for barely a year, a little over a year, and for 9 months out of that year, they were World Tag Team Champions, and then they split up. But we still talk about Doom as like they were together for 20 years or 10 years or whatever.
Like they were together as long as LOD was.
Yeah, or even as long as APA was. And then he comes in there.
Sure.
And don't get me wrong, he didn't win the title 19 times like Edge and Christian or the Dudley Boys or the Hardy Boys. And I'm not trying to shit on them.
It's a different world.
But it was meaningful.
Yeah, you had to figure in the Attitude Era, younger was more attractive. The flashy shit, falling off the ladders, all that stuff was kind of the name of the game. But you still had APA, which were they were bruisers. They were fucking stiff pro wrestlers. Still won the title 3 times, which is cool.
I would take a snug tag team right now over some of that stuff that
we never get a chance to talk about Ron Simmons. I think now you asked me in the beginning why, and I was like, I don't really know, but I do know. We never get to talk about him, and I loved Ron Simmons when I was growing up. I was a big Hogan guy, blah blah blah. But I mean, Ron Simmons was one of the ones that I really liked, and even the young Jess, before I really knew 100%, I knew wrestling was fake, obviously, but when I didn't know the 100% of the politics yet. Internet wasn't a thing, but Ron Simmons was one of the guys I always was like, why the fuck aren't you pushing him harder? Why not? He's everything you want. He's awesome. He's physically just impressive to look at. And he's an athlete as all hell. And this guy is a power wrestler. He can get in there with other good guys. He had already established himself with Doom. I will always remember him for Doom and for winning the world title. Those are my things. And I'm not saying I don't respect the APA run or the Nation or whatever, but me personally, that's what I connected with Ron Simmons as, because I just thought he was a good wrestler. And I was like, this guy's cool as shit, and he's tough, and I believe everything he did, from his spine buster, the stand-up spine buster. Anderson would pick him up and turn over with them, but Simmons would pick him up and fucking throw him straight down hard.
Slam him down.
The Dominator, his fucking side pile driver face pancake or whatever you want to call it, that was a great move too. Simmons was cool as shit, man. I love Simmons.
You'll still geek out over his scoop power slam.
His scoop power
Vader.
slam's awesome.
Yeah.
Good gravy.
I know. I think
I think
because you connect with him probably more with the nation shit and going forward. I don't mean shit isn't a bad thing, by the way. I just mean like nation stuff.
I mean,
and,
no, I was just gonna say if you on paper, like when you, I mean, well, not on paper, but like considering how they treated the world title run in WCW, I think to me his legacy was cemented more because of the fact that he created the nation and it was so groundbreaking, and then the fact that Dave, you already said it, the Rock may have not been the Rock if it wasn't for him. I mean, you could say, yeah, maybe the Rock would still do it in the nation if he was in the nation and build off of that, but like Jess said, you need that he was a fuddy-duddy, and you kind of needed that to go against The Rock. You needed that party
catalyst,
and then you needed Farouk for all his talents, man. Like I said, as a kid watching that, I'm like, oh, this guy's a legit tough guy. This guy's scary. This guy's mean. He'll take anybody out. And then same with Bradshaw. I mean, yeah, he didn't feud with Bradshaw like how he did with The Rock to have Rock launch his career off, but I think being with Farouk allowed Bradshaw to warm up and to get comfortable. And that's why he was able to become the, wrestling god and everything. But that to me, just those two accomplishments right there are big accomplishments, and the Nation of Domination part as well, creating that. To me, that sticks out more than his title run because I wasn't watching WCW as a kid when he was a champion yet. I mean, sparsely, but not focused on him. But I mean, to me, that's the stuff that stands out. And I think, even if he didn't have that world title run, I still think he would be worthy of the Hall of Fame and of a legacy episode. That's just, my thoughts on that.
No, I think that's why we're doing the legacy, right? It goes without saying. He is. Yeah,
and that's just because of how WCW handled the world title, world title run. That's
they
why.
mucked that up pretty bad.
It would have been a lot better if they didn't do it that way.
So
if they did it the
inexcusable. I
right
hate
way.
it.
Yeah. That's why I'm like, that's cool that he made history, but what does it matter anymore since they treated it the way they did? Like,
it's funny because you would think a world title run would be more impressive, but the Nation of Domination is probably it's his masterpiece.
The music was cool. Everything, man. Just everything.
Oh, the Nation's music. Cool, oh my God, the music.
Yeah, one of the best. For audio fans, give us a listen on Apple, Spotify, SoundCloud, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, or Google Podcast. Or you can even watch our videos on YouTube at Our Wrestling Channel. On social media, give us a follow on Instagram or Twitter at O.W.P 2019. And catch us on Facebook at Our Wrestling Podcast. This is Dave, Jess, and Cuz with the O.W.P signing off. Have a good one. Damn!